You're listening to the Act As If podcast with Coach Roel. Real life success stories in business and investing as they happen. And now, here's your host, Coach Roel.
Hello and welcome to the Act As If podcast with yours truly, Coach Roel. So what is this Act As If thing that I'm talking about? Well, let me explain. Act As If is a goal achievement technique that I have used and many people used with great success for who knows how long. But personally, I've used it for probably about 20 years, almost 20 years, if not more, to be able to achieve some of the great things that I've achieved that I'm most proud of. Quick little backstory. Born in the Philippines, family moved to Toronto when I was just 1 year old. Lived in the cold Canadian harsh winters, loved it for about 40 plus years, and then decided to relocate my wife and kids down to Orlando, Florida, in the land of the sun and beach and sand. And when we retired early, as I like to sometimes call it. And so we're living the Canadian dream, being snowbird investors down here in Orlando, Florida. So that said, how did we get to this point? And there's a whole lot that I'm skipping over, but basically Act As If is a technique that has helped me to get to where I am today. And I know it has definitely served a lot of other people. Basically, you might have heard of other versions of Act As If being referred to as fake it till make it, which I don't really like. I don't like the idea of faking it. The childhood game of let's pretend, I think, is a lot more appropriate. In the grown-up version, I like to refer to as Act As If. So in the context of picture yourself, you have a goal and it's a challenge for you, it's a stretch, but you really want to be able to achieve that in your life. Then Act As If is kind of self-explanatory, but I would say that if you want to work towards that goal and make it happen as quickly as possible, then just act as if you already have it, or act as if you've already completed it. And to give you an example, quick little story from my experience where I used to be in financial services in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. There was a gentleman who joined the office at the time, and I got to be careful with this. Let's call him Randy. So his name is Randy, so that's not his real name. But Randy had a bit of a reputation of talking a big game. Like he talked as if he knew like super wealthy and famous people. And he had an interesting way of making you feel kind of small, which definitely wasn't a positive thing. So there's not an ironic twist that it was a good thing. But the story does have a good positive twist, at least the way I saw it. And so Randy kind of joins our office and then immediately starts chatting people up and getting to know people. He was kind of like networking, I guess, and quickly established a reputation for himself that he must be some kind of big shot, because as financial planners, it's always good to be able to have a network, personal network of people who have money, basically like people saving for retirement, business owners, and the wealthier they are, the better it is for you as a financial planner. So he quickly established himself as having this kind of reputation. And as we got to know him, at first, the first impression was like, wow, this guy is a big shot. And then we got to know him a little bit more as he would hang around the office. And we've started discovering that, okay, he doesn't really have a background in business or financial services or anything of that nature. We're like, well, what kind of gives? He's talking about this big game that he knows this person. He would name drop some famous celebrities that you might know from anyways, I won't name any names, but celebrities that you'd see on TV or you'd hear in the media and stuff. But we're like, what gives? Where are these people that he's talking about in this big game that he's saying that he knows all these wealthy people and celebrities, but none of them are coming into the office and he's not closing them as new clients. He's not bringing them aboard as new clients or anything for several weeks. And so it almost came to a point where Well, it kind of did come to the point where it was almost like a bit of a running joke. Well, like, oh, Randy said this. Oh, yeah, what he told me today, or what he just told me yesterday, is that he knows this person and that they're going to be coming in, and we don't know where they are, and they haven't come in. And so, unfortunately, it was a bit of a running joke, and people would kind of snicker behind him, and treat me trying to be positive. It's like, well, you never know, whatever. As long as he's happy, he's not hurting you. Leave it alone. Let people be. And then not a few, but several months passed by, and he just kind of became a fixture in the office. This is, Randy talking a big game, until one day he actually brought in a celebrity. Now, if you grew up in Toronto or in Metro Toronto, and City TV or CP24, then I'm not going to name drop. I'm not going to mention the name, but he did bring in a pretty recognizable figure into the office. And we were all floored. We're like, oh my gosh, did you hear that Randy is here today? And he brought so-and-so with him, and he was introducing him to everybody in the office. He wanted to make sure that everybody knew that he brought this person who was a fixture in the Greater Toronto City TV CP24 days, that he was in everybody's home every morning and every night, several times throughout the day. He actually brought him into our office and to have a meeting with some senior management to help try to bring him in and bring him on as a client. And after that, nobody laughed behind his back anymore. He was still kind of a funny kind of character, this Randy guy, but we were all, I guess anyone who doubted him had turned into believers. And even though there would be some office gossip and people talking behind his back and stuff, I would always make a point to try to help others understand the lesson to be learned there. And that is what I'm going to share with you right now. The fact that this Randy dude was so delusional that he really believed he knew all these famous people and talked this big game for several weeks, several months. And then finally, he started actually bringing in, with his first celebrity, he brought in that person. He needed some help closing them and bringing them aboard as a client, but he ended up getting him on board as a client. So we actually did have one of these celebrities be a part of our office as a client. And then slowly he started bringing more business people who really did show their statements, and they had a lot of money, and it continued after that. So the lesson that I would always make sure to share with people, or to try to help people when they would kind of gossip behind his back and say, this Randy guy, he thinks he's such a big shot. Sure, he brought in that one person, but who else? The lesson was this, is that, what, say what you want about, in terms of your opinion about Randy, but he really did bring in a handful of celebrities, and at least some of his stories, you got to admit that they were true. And the interesting thing is that from my perspective, it really seemed like that he willed it into existence. Like, again, this gentleman, I don't even think he finished college or university, which is no big deal. I didn't finish university either. He was, I believe he was a doorman in the ritzy area of downtown Toronto, Yorkville. I believe he was a doorman. So that's how he had met a lot of these celebrities, a doorman for one of the high-end condos there. And I think he was a bodyguard at one point. So financial services was like really far away from his background. However, the lesson I would always tell people is, take a look at Randy. You might think he's delusional and he's really like, his head is in, some kind of dreamland, but it worked for him. He was often in the bullpen having these loud conversations with these famous people. And everyone was truly convinced that he was having these really loud, boisterous conversations in the middle of the office, dropping these famous names so that everybody knew that he was talking to a famous person and trying to bring them in, until which day he actually did bring in one of these celebrities, and then another, and then another, and then another. So as a lesson, because I was a division director at the time, I would teach my division. I go, I wouldn't necessarily say his name, but I would say, you know what, act as if you already have the dream clients that you are pursuing right now. Act as if you're already successful. Act as if, and to the point where you're even delusional. I mean, who are you hurting? As long as you're not hurting anybody else, what's wrong with act as if? Because best case scenario, you'll actually bring it into existence. And at which case you're no longer acting and it becomes a reality. Around the same time, I used to give several motivational speeches to consultants within my division, as well as other financial planners across the country, because I was doing quite well and hit a lot of the marks. And so the company would have me speak once in a while to different offices. And especially to new consultants, I would do like weekly speeches to brand new consultants. And I'll share one of those stories with you right now as well. The story was when I was starting out as a financial consultant, you don't get a base pay, you don't get a salary. Everything is commission only. And the interesting thing is, I too did not have any financial background at that time. We're talking about 2003 when I joined financial services, 2004, struggling commission only, no base salary, but I wanted to create this self-employed book of business. And that was going to be my answer to, or my solution for figuring out the whole financial freedom puzzle. And at the time, again, I was struggling. It was difficult. It was difficult getting up out of bed and then going to the office. I didn't even drive a car at that point in time. So what I did was I remembered this technique called act as if. And here's how I applied it back then. What was I? Probably about 36, 37 years old, I think, around that time, 2004. Every day I would wake up and I would tell myself, I am successful. I am a successful financial consultant. And it wasn't instantaneous, but I would piece together. I sat there. I didn't really do like a meditation on it, but I constantly thought about what would I look like and how would I act and how would I carry myself when I'm already successful? So I had this vision in my mind of myself. And for me, this is kind of fun actually thinking about it right now. My vision of what I would look like when I was a successful financial consultant was me standing in a black 3-piece suit with a vest, tailored with a crisp white shirt and a beautiful tie. I forget what color it was really. I'm kind of color deficient, to be honest with you. But about 10 pounds lighter, 2 inches shaved off of my waistline, healthy, glowing, and just beaming with contentment and just epitomizing success. That was what I really would visualize myself, or what I imagined myself to be like when I am successful at some point in the future. So I put together that image. And again, every morning I would, I went out prior to that. I went out and actually looked for that suit. Mind you, I looked for a suit on sale because I didn't have a whole lot of money, next to none actually at that time. And I put together a black 3-piece suit, and I got a nice tie and a nice shirt. And that was my one nice outfit. I had other suits and other shirts and ties that weren't as nice, but it was just the uniform. But whenever I wore that one suit, I would put that on and I would stare at myself in the mirror every morning. And I would say to myself, I believe me. I'm a bad man. I'm a bad man. I'm a bad man. And I would get myself pumped up and be like, you know what? I'm just going to act as if I'm already there. So I dressed the part, basically. And I got myself to the point where I convinced myself that, yeah, looking at me now in the mirror, yeah, I believe me. I look successful. And I would just tell myself, well, darn it, I am. And I kind of give myself an internal mental pep talk before I went out and took the bus to my financial services office, and then made phone calls and sent emails and conducted appointments. And my first few clients in financial services were none the wiser. I mean, I didn't give them any reason to doubt me. I was the epitome of confidence in myself, in my firm. And eventually, and this is how the story went, what I would tell the new financial consultants, I go, the funny thing is, I did that and I wore that one suit once a week at least, because I wanted to feel that way. Even in my other suit, with my other suits that didn't quite fit as well, didn't look quite as nice, I would still pump myself up and convince myself that I was already successful. And the interesting thing that happened is I would do this every single day, every single week, every single month for probably about 3 years, 2.5 years or so, when somebody in the office said, we have our next division director right here. It was at a Christmas party. That's what it was. Our office manager had said, put her hands on my shoulders behind me while I was sitting at the table. And she put her hands on my shoulders and said, we have our next division director right here. And that's middle management. So at the time I was just a consultant, first rung on the totem pole, so to say. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? That's crazy. It was like, and then she said to me, who else could there be? I mean, name somebody else in the office that you think could be the next division director. It's obvious it's got to be you. And again, I pulled myself back and I thought, you know what? I kind of agree with her, not trying to big myself up too much, but yeah, objectively speaking, I was already acting like the next level in my career, which was a division director. What was I doing? I was teaching others who were new in as a consultant in the office. I was kind of taking them under my wing, or just having a little pep talk with them and saying, you know what, it gets easier, giving them some encouragement and getting to know them, where they're from, what their plan is, how they're going to build their business. And I was volunteering to do my own training sessions as well for new people. And I guess the upper management noticed this. And so the fact that I was already performing some of the functions of middle management on my own time, of my own volition or self-motivated, proactively, that's the word I'm looking for. The fact I was doing these things proactively, I guess at the time, looking back, the upper management was thinking, well, yeah, Roel's already acting like a division director. Maybe we should just promote him or recommend him to get into this role anyways. So the act as if technique really served me in that sense. And then from that point on, I just kept repeating over and over, what's my next goal? What's my next goal? And as a brand new division director at that time, I didn't have any consultants within my division. And part of my responsibility was to attract new consultants to that role and to be part of my division. And so I did it yet again, and in a more intentional way, where I would actually sit and visualize and picture what it would be like when I would be a successful division director. I remember I would write down these affirmations. I would repeat it in my head, and I would say I would have this, and that, and I have X amount of consultants within my division, and each of them are successful and they're making lots of money and they're able to make an excellent living, comfortable living for themselves and for their family and for their children. I wanted to serve people that way. And this is how it's going to look like for me. And I'm so happy and grateful that that's the way it is right now. And I did this for another, what does that bring us now to? Probably about another 3 or 4 years. And then eventually, I believe it was 2009, that I actually did it. I actually hit the top 3 amongst 400 peers nationally of division directors, peer group of 400 division directors across Canada. And I was number 3 out of that 400. And as a result, I was invited to attend a sales conference in Tokyo, Japan the next year as a reward, as a sales conference reward. So they call it a sales conference, but really it's like an excuse for the executive management to treat their top performers. So yet again, it served me and I was able to reach that. And I have countless other stories, which I won't get into at this point in time, because I'm sure we'll have a lot more opportunity to have this conversation in the future. But that experience and that technique, the act as if technique, has served me countless numbers of times over and over. And I have, as a result too of doing stuff, achieving goals myself, I've had the fortunate surprise or had the good fortune to have kind of organically surrounded myself with other high achievers who use very similar techniques in their lives and continue to use similar techniques. And that was really the impetus for starting up this podcast, the Act as If podcast, because I truly believe that we live in a field of infinite possibilities. Now, I'm about to get a little woo on you right now, so forewarning, this is where we kind of take a crazy left turn here. But I truly believe we live in a field of infinite possibilities, meaning anything you can imagine for yourself already exists. I do believe in the multi-universe parallel realities theory. I don't think it's a theory. I think it is a reality. And anything that you can imagine for yourself, it already exists. All of it coexists at the same time. And whatever reality that you are experiencing or you think you're experiencing at the present moment is of your doing. You've chosen this reality, whether consciously or unconsciously. And so the act as if technique strategy for goal achievement fits very nicely within this belief, within this philosophy, that if you're able to get yourself in the feeling place and the visualization and be able to fill out all of the details, the sights, the smells, the feelings, the sounds, all of that from all five senses, and even internally the thoughts, if you can get yourself into that space as if it's already happened or as if it's already real, I truly believe that it will happen. It's not even a matter of belief. I know it will happen because I have proven it to myself over and over again. And that leads me to the fact that I want to officially welcome you to season 1 of the Act as If podcast, because I have interviewed for you 6 dynamic, successful high achievers that are in my personal network that I have personally invited to join me on this podcast to share their experiences, as well as to do a little bit of a let's pretend exercise for their next step in their goal achievement. So here's how it works. Each episode or each guest has 2 episodes, part 1 and part 2. Part 1 of the episode is the act as if part, where I interview my guest as if they've already achieved the amazing things that they've laid out for themselves, the goals that they see for themselves at some point in the future. So we play this elaborate game of, not even an elaborate game, but a very simple game really, but a really in-depth immersive game of let's pretend. So what you'll hear is that I'm catching up with these old friends and I refer to, it's been a while since we talked last time. How is life right now? How's business? How are your investments? How's your personal life? And that opens up the platform for them to act as if they already are living the life of their dreams, fast forward 12 to 36 months from the actual present time. And so that goes on for about 12, 15 minutes for the first part. And then we take a break and then we record at part 2 of their interview. And we speak freely and we unpack what their experience was. And we talk about whatever techniques that they use and how it felt to go through this thing. And it's really interesting what each of them had to say and I won't give you too many spoilers right now, but you got to make sure that you listen to each and every one of these interviews, because these are highly successful people. They're high achievers. They have achieved some pretty amazing things in their short recent history. These are not like people who've been doing real estate or business investing for 20, 30, 40 plus years. Each of these people, each of my guests have been doing real estate and business achievements in probably the last decade, because that's when I met them, was within the last 10 years. And I just feel it was a really amazing experience for me. And from what they've told me, it was a really valuable experience, an eye-opening experience for them. So I truly hope that you enjoy, that you are able to keep up with each of the episodes. So I've got, including this episode that you're listening or watching right now, 13 episodes. So it's based on like a 90s sitcom television series for one season. So it's based on 13 episodes. I have 6 guests. Each of them have 2 episodes each. So that's 12 plus this one is 13. So I sincerely hope that you enjoy each and every one of these episodes as I release them. And if you're interested in becoming a future guest in season 2 of the Act As If podcast, then please go to www.actasifpodcast.com. actasifpodcast.com, and you'll be able to fill out an application form there, and you'll get further instructions there. It's a really, really valuable and enjoyable experience to go through this. But don't take my word for it. Make sure you listen to each and every episode, especially the part 2 of each of my guests' episode interviews, and you'll hear how what they felt and what the experience was like for them. So once again, I am Coach Roel, the host of the Act As If podcast. I sincerely welcome you and thank you for checking this out. And I'll see you on the other side. I'll see you in the episodes that are coming up.
You've been listening to the Act As If podcast with Coach Roel. Real life success stories in business and investing as they happen.